behalf of Beacon House School System, organizer of the School of Tomorrow events, I'd like to welcome you to A World of Tomorrow, Negotiating a Better Future, the 11th edition of SOT events and the first that is fully virtual. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beacon House in 2000 as part of its CSR, and to help inform the direction of the organization, whilst also engaging global communities in conversations shaping the future of schools and societies. I'm Saira Mubashir, General Manager, Early Years Education at the Beacon House School System. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this live session at the 11th edition of SOT events. The motion before the House is that online teaching is ineffective for younger children. The global pandemic has forced schools to close and has led to a breathtaking expansion of online education. However, there is much debate about the effectiveness of online learning for children under the age of 7. The proponents and opponents debate the success of online learning and the impact on young learners. This parliamentary-style debate pitches two teams against each other, one supporting the motion and the other opposing it. Who will swing the balance in their favor is to be seen. We'll quickly go over the structure and the rules of the debate. Each speaker will deliver a 6-minute constructive speech. Points of information will be allowed after the speeches. If no point of information is raised, I will immediately call upon the next debater to begin their address. There will be no points of order or points of privilege. Heckling is also prohibited. Are there any questions? Seems not. Okay. A pre-debate poll and post-debate poll will be conducted, and the audience will be requested to vote for or against the motion. The results of the poll will be announced at the end of the debate. Now for the pre-debate poll, I would like to request our viewers to log into live.sotevents.com and cast a vote either for or against the motion. And we'll just take a 3-minute stop there to give people time to vote. Moving on, introductions. Representing the proposition are its first speaker, Ms. Nadine Murtaza. Ms. Murtaza has extensive experience of education. She is the founder of Nani Jan's Nursery, a liberal, play-based, inquiry-led school, and is the mother of 2 young children who drive her passion for education. Our second speaker for the proposition is Mr. Usama Khilji. Usama is director at Bolobi. He is board member of Global Network Initiative and advisor to Refugee Rights Europe. He is a columnist at Dawn and Al Jazeera English and was a Chevening Scholar at London School of Economics. Representing the opposition are its first speaker, Ms. Aishas Speech. Ms. Kasuri is an educationist with a demonstrated history in experiential education, research, management, coaching, leadership, and team building. Her professional expertise focuses on alternate education models, PBL, Montessori, Reggio Emilia. And she believes a critical part of learning for all is play. Our second speaker for the opposition is Mr. Fred O Rourke, an IT specialist who has worked for over 20 years in professional programming. Mr. O Rourke has been the driving force behind digital transformation in schools in England, France, Kazakhstan, and Malaysia. He has an in-depth understanding of people and technology and is an adept problem solver. Each speaker will get 6 minutes to present their speech. The opposing team may raise a point of information after each speech. Without further ado, I request the first speaker representing the proposition, Ms. Nadine Murtaza, for the first proposition speech. You have 6 minutes, Ms. Murtaza. That's starting now. We can't hear you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. This is my second time participating in a School of Tomorrow event, a series of events that I'm a huge fan of and which I feel are an extremely important contribution to dialogue about education in Pakistan. I am extremely happy to be participating in a healthy conversation about online learning, which has become a very important aspect of all of our lives as educators and as parents because of the COVID dynamic. But for the purposes of this debate, we'd like to talk about online learning beyond the debate. So without further ado, let me begin with the arguments of the day. The topic before the House is online teaching is ineffective for young children. And as the first speaker of the proposition, it is upon me to define what we mean by online teaching. Because this is a friendly debate, prior to today's session, we were able to agree upon a definition, which is that online teaching is remote learning via the internet, whether synchronous or asynchronous. By young children, we mean children between the ages of 3 and 7. And by ineffective, I think the word ineffective really is where the debate will take place. The definition of effective is something that produces a desired or intended result, so something that's successful in producing a desired or intended result, which begs the question, what are the desired or intended results of education? I think we can all agree that Pakistan is a very diverse educational landscape with a combination of highly privileged, world-class international schools, as well as deeply under-resourced and remote schools with very little access to what we would consider basic educational resources. Given this debate is taking place inside of a Pakistani context, I think that we must proceed with some sensitivity, and therefore my teammate and I are going to approach this subject from a philosophical aspect, where we will deal with the idea of whether online teaching is effective in theory or not. And we will also talk about the practical aspects of it. Our side is going to present 3 primary arguments. The first being that online learning, in theory, has many benefits because of the power of online teaching tools and of digital technologies and visual media to communicate and to teach, to communicate information or concepts and to teach. But we feel primarily as our first line of argument that the benefits are greatly outweighed by the cons and by the adverse effects of extended online learning for young children. Our second line of argument, ladies and gentlemen, is that the aspect of socialization and community, which is such an integral part of a holistic educational program, is greatly, greatly impacted by an extended reliance on online teaching for young students. And our third line of argument, ladies and gentlemen, is simply that it's inaccessible to many of our compatriots and therefore not a practical solution. So the first line of argument would be the more philosophical one, which I will deal with, and my partner Osama Khilji will take up the other 2 lines of argument during his own speech. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to now go into my first point, which is that we have all seen the benefits of online teaching. Of course, animated content is so captivating, and content that is self-correcting or the difficulty level of which is adaptive to student needs. So if a student gets a question wrong, the next question they get is a slightly easier question so that they don't feel overwhelmed. A lot of technology is now so smart and so intelligent, and it really gives students the support that they need. But what we're going to argue on this side of the house today, ladies and gentlemen, is that all of these resources are better utilized in a blended learning environment as opposed to an online learning environment. A blended learning environment would be a face-to-face environment that employs tech-based educational tools or educational learning solutions, and may on occasion even feature online learning, but is not founded on the basis of online teaching as its core method of delivery. Why, ladies and gentlemen, is this extremely critical? The reason is that the impact on student health, on the health of young children, and on the cognitive development of young children when they are exposed for extended periods of time to a screen, is extremely adverse. There is excessive amounts of research to show that excessive screen use is unhealthy. We are dealing with childhood obesity, ladies and gentlemen. We have problems with posture. Also, online learning can be extremely passive, and it's very difficult to design well. When we design it very well, ladies and gentlemen, we will find that the price of it goes up and there's a cost involved. So for all these reasons, on this side of the house, we support blended learning and not online learning.
Thank you, Nadine. I would now like to request the first member of the opposition, Ms. Aisha Kasuri, to present the point of information and for the proposition to respond. You have 3 minutes, Aisha.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this global conversation about how effective online teaching is on young children. Firstly, I'd like to discuss the fact that this is a global conversation. Thus, we will not be limiting this to just Pakistan. We are talking about online, and online does not have a domain. It is a world domain. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the fact that blended learning can be blended in several ways. It can all be done online. We don't have to stay online in order to be blended. A teacher can give us instruction. We can always come offline and do some stuff. So what I mean to say is that the term blended for me means something a little bit different. Also, one of the things that I wanted to discuss is that my colleague discussed communities. There are communities have existed forever. However, because we are in the digital era, communities could be redefined. There could be an online community. Communities together can be redefined in a manner which give access to all children across the board. It doesn't have to be a very localized community. And lastly, like I said before, we are in the digital era, and in the digital era, things are being redefined. My colleague, Mr. Fred and I were talking before, and networking, for instance. Networking seems like a very digital term, very techie term. However, networks were created when the first smoke signal came, and I'm completely quoting you on this one, Fred, but the first smoke signal was a network. And back at that time, they did not know where networks were going to go. But look at us today. Lastly, the point that I'd like to bring home is that Corona and COVID-19 happened at a time when nobody expected it. Nobody forced, if you told anybody that today children would be sitting behind a computer and not going to a brick and mortar school, we would all be very surprised. However, that is the reality. That is where we are today. And this is the opportunity. This disruption is the opportunity for us to look at and take stock of where we are right now and how in the future can we change this and make sure that we are not fumbling. There have been online schools, online teaching since the 90s. This is not something new. We can learn from the past in order to move forward in the future. And I think today in this conversation, that is something that I want to also be very cognizant of, that we are negotiating a better future. We are not talking about the past and what's happened in the past and our experiences with the past. We are talking about a future. We are reimagining a future. We are looking at vast amounts of data at our fingers that we can use. So why not use those and make sure that online teaching is effective for young children. I think my time's up.
Thank you, Aisha. And Aisha, it's back to you again for your speech. As the first member of the opposition, we would like to hear your first constructive speech, please. And you have 6 minutes for this.
Thank you very much. In our speech, we are going to touch upon 4 to 5 different points. I'm going to start off with a quote that I greatly admire by a person that I greatly admire, Seymour Papert. He is an MIT mathematician and an educator. You can't teach people everything they need to know. The best you can do is position them where they can find what they need to know and when they need to know it. This has been my experience in the last 20 years in education from K to 12, about equipping my students with the tools that they need when they need it. Learning is a vast ocean with many, many islands. And we'll only be able to touch upon a few of them today because of this debate. We will not be able to get into all of them. So please bear with me as I navigate that ocean. I will say that the use of internet-based technology has been an enabler of my success as well as the success of my students. Allow me to explain this a little bit further. So online education prepares young children, and by young, we are defining them between the ages of 2 and 7. I believe that it develops pre-literacy skills, such as it enhances their vocabulary, it helps them create narrative, and most importantly, it exposes them to print. Something that we do in every preschool is exposing children to all forms of print. Also, it on a very basic level, it starts and it helps a child with the development of a routine. It helps children follow directions. It enhances their concentration camp. It also leads to early socialization. Now, whether that is through, my colleagues may say that, that's through another human being, but no, socialization and interaction can be through an emoji, through an animation. As long as a child is communicating back and forth, it does lead to socialization. And I think one of the things is that it creates a very safe physical space for a child. Children have jitters when they are going into new schools. This sort of eases them into going into a school situation where their primary caregiver may not be with them. Secondly, we all know that we are amazed by how children in this day and age, whether they are 2 years old or 3 years old, already know how to maneuver a phone or a tablet or a computer. For them, it is something that is a tool. It is something that is a gaming tool for them. Also, there is already a lot of information out there. For instance, Khan Academy is one such application that is used for early childhood education, and there is a study out of UMass Amherst that says that children who were exposed, and these are at-risk preschoolers who were given this app for 30 days to see how they would, and this is during the COVID pandemic. So this is this is the latest research that is out there. And I'm going to read directly from it. UMass Amherst study finds free app enhanced at-risk preschooler readiness as millions of families struggle to keep their children learning while schools are closed due to COVID. Preliminary results of randomized control study led to psychology researcher David Arnold at the University of Massachusetts to show that 4 to 5 year olds from low-income families who use Khan Academy for 3 months at home achieved substantial gains in their pre-literacy skills that brought them to a national average. Now that to me is a feat in itself. Now, how can we do this? How we can do this is through data-driven insights, which will further enhance personalized learning and education outcomes. So one of the things there is that we can, through this, and I would like to use this as a tool for enhancement, where we can create randomized controlled trials like A versus B testing trials, which allow us quality assurance, which allow us to be in real time to look at what we're teaching and what the child is learning, so that we don't have to wait for an end of term or a quarter or an end of year exam, but we can actually fix those glitches as we go along. We can collect enough data that we can look at how our teaching is happening. I know as a school administrator, I spent hours and hours in training, but by this, we are given data in our hands which show us what effective teaching is. Also, one of the things that it creates, it creates transparency, it creates accountability from the teacher's end. It makes sure that everybody sitting in the classroom is carrying out exactly the mission or the ethos of that school or the vision that they belong to. And lastly, it helps on a larger scale. It helps us scale cost-effective education. It helps us with the potential of reducing the gaps created by socio-economic inequality. It helps us with children who are otherwise not integrated in the regular school system, children with certain abilities that they can't be a part of regular school system, who are generally overlooked. So this is such a huge opportunity as far as I'm concerned. My colleague, Mr. Fred, will also tell you that we also believe that the tech is already out there. There is artificial intelligence already out there working for us. And these are the points that we'd like to further talk about. And the fact is that this is happening across the world. This is happening in many places where there is a socio-economic divide, so what we can do is take from those experiences and put them in our local cultural context, whether it is our cultural context as Pakistanis, or whether it's a cultural context for somebody in Nigeria or elsewhere. But there are already things out there that are happening. It's up to us to enhance them, for us to put them in the right cultural context. Thank you. I think my time's up.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you very much for that. Moving on now for the point of information from the second member of the proposition, Mr. Usama Khilji, and for the opposition to respond.
Thank you very much for those very important points, and thank you for having me here. I wholeheartedly welcome the points made by my honorable member of the opposition, Ms. Aisha Kasturi, and I agree that the online, education could help quite a bit. But my question is, how are those people who do not have access to internet supposed to get an education, considering that the right to education is universal? And we know that for geographical and for economic reasons, a lot of people are on the other side of the digital divide. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the opposition?
Fred, do you want to take this?
Absolutely, yes, I can. I'd like to say that most online platforms now target smartphones, and they're nearly ubiquitous across the world. There are very low price point smartphones available in every region of the world now. And although, of course, there will be cases where there's a total lack of technology for some, but for the many, already there is basic access in place that should be sufficient for things to work. And I think that work from schools and families and communities is needed to make sure that the digital divide doesn't impact large communities adversely. So I think it is an ongoing challenge, as is access to clean water, sanitation, and many other things. But it certainly isn't an impediment to say that online or distance learning does not work for young children. I think I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
May I add to that point, Saira?
You have a minute. Your side has a minute. Okay. So yes, Aisha.
Okay. So one of the things that Usama, I respect what you're saying, and I totally appreciate what you're bringing to the fore. However, having said this, because the debate is about whether online teaching is ineffective for young children, we are not talking about their access to the internet. And one of the things there is that is something that has to be taken on a national level with the governments, where they get into public and private partnerships. For instance, in Nigeria, where there are places without access to education, with access to the internet, the government has gotten into big companies and given out free modems. So that's something that we have to look towards our government. As far as we are concerned, we are the educators and we can create content online that is effective. Now, how it gets to the child is something that is a different debate altogether and has to be taken up on a national level with our government.
Thank you, Aisha. Going to move on now. I'd like to invite our second speaker for the proposition, Mr. Usama Khilji.
Thank you very much. The first speaker of the proposition, Ms. Nadine Murtaza, spoke about at length about cognitive and physical health impacts of online education, and that was our first line of argument. So as team proposition and as the second speaker, I will be talking to you about our second and third lines of argument. Our second line of argument is to do with the importance of socialization and community aspect of learning and how online education does not cater to that. And then in this, I'll also be talking to you about what the alternative to online learning for young children is as proposed by us as team proposition. And our second line of argument is to do with access and the digital divide, considering how education is a universal right and how online education, practically speaking, leaves out a huge portion of young children that should be learning otherwise. So I'll go into first the second line of argument, which is to do with socialization and community aspect of learning. So why are schools important, and why do parents send their children to schools rather than keeping them at homeschooling or otherwise? It's because when you go to school, you have a great element of socialization. Children meet each other, they play with each other, they interact, they see other students, how they behave, they see other teachers, how they behave in person rather than in front of a screen where it's hard for them to differentiate between a television show and online class. So for children to miss out on that opportunity means that the children miss out on very important life skills and social skills that they develop with children of the same age as them that they could be socializing with in a in-person learning environment. And secondly, the group interactions would really amplify their learning because of the group interactions they have, where another student could communicate with the students, and because of the environment that learning together brings in. Now, because we're talking about age 3 to 7 children, and because we're talking about online education, now what the opposition is assuming is that every child has parents available for them, practically speaking, to set up their online education setup, and we're also assuming that that education is going to be effective. However, we propose an alternative where we talk about a practical skill-based learning activities for children between 3 to 7 years old that not only teach them educational concepts, but also teach them other important life skills. So for example, creative, physical, and other activities that don't necessarily rely on one child sitting on a desk for hours in front of a screen and following the instructions that they're being given. So what we propose is that because for online education, the children are also dependent on a certain schedule, as we see schools running these days. And even if it is recorded, they require parental supervision. And because we're assuming that parents will have a schedule that will suit the school schedule, when we have parents doing essential jobs, such as doctors or such as other jobs in which they have to leave the house, it is not practically possible for all parents to follow such, give the children the same attention that a teacher would in a school. So for these reasons, we believe that socialization, community aspect of learning is of utmost importance for children from age 3 to 7. Now I'll move on to my second line of argument. And our respected opposition and honorable opposition, talks about online education, which we believe, for in some cases can be effective. But sitting here, if we're talking about universal right to education, something that constitutions in over 90 countries in the world guarantee, and if we're talking about effective learning, then we have to remember that the digital divide is very, very vast till date. Now, what do we mean by the digital divide? I'll explain this to you in two different levels. The first level is that of the economic digital divide. So what do we see? For online learning, you need a laptop, you need a tablet, or you need a stable internet connection. If you look at countries such as Pakistan with more than 200 million people, only 20 to 30% of the population has access to the internet. Now, what does that mean? That the 70% of the population does not have access to the internet. And practically speaking, can online education really be effective if you do not even have connectivity to the internet? I don't think so. And the second digital divide that we talk about is geographical. So there are parts of the country and parts of the world where internet is not even available. So let's not think too far. Let's think of Pakistan. We have, the former tribal districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, we have Gilgit-Baltistan, and we have parts of Balochistan that still do not have internet connectivity. And if we're talking about universal access to education, then a lot of these students will be left out. So can we really say that online education is effective for young children aged 3 to 7? No, because firstly, they will not get the socialization community aspect, which is important for learning and for their cognitive skills. And secondly, because of the digital divide and because of issues of access, we're speaking from a place of privilege where a vast majority of people cannot even access internet for education. And for this reason, I beg you to vote team proposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Usama. Moving on, now for the point of information from the second opposition, Mr. Fred O Rourke, and response from the proposition, please.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Usama. That was some very, very interesting points that you raised. And I think they are all incredibly valid. However, I don't think they're related directly to the ability for online learning to be effective in young children. And there are many regions of the world where the children cannot go to school because they need to be out working to make money for their families. And the ability to educate either online or in class is difficult for a large portion of the world. But I would never argue that schools are ineffective because of that. And this is really the argument you are making. So from my perspective, this doesn't really say that the online learning is ineffective, more that there are social problems that need to be addressed so that education is available to all, and it is a universal right, and it needs to be fought for in a physical school, online, on a community level, on a level of the country. Also, there's been lots of studies that have talked about the family background mattering more than the school itself as to how well a child learns. So, of course, if there is no access to any technology, I'd question how effective a school would be in doing the teaching compared to schools that do have access to technology. So, I mean, they're all incredibly important points, and we should be discussing and analysing and working out what can be done, but I don't think it has any relevance to this debate at all. I think I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And of course, Fred, it is now you as the second speaker are to speak for the opposition. Mr. Fred O Rourke.
Sorry, do I get a chance to respond?
Oh, yes, of course.
Please,
Go ahead.
yes.
Thank you very much. Whereas I appreciate, the importance of, and I really appreciate especially the comparison that you make of, children not having access to school, so they won't be able to access it. However, what we're trying to argue is on two levels. So on the first argument that I presented was on the importance of socialization and community, a sense of community that's important for children, young children, to be able to learn that's activity-based, that's off the screen, and which really helps younger children learn better. But our second argument was really trying to take a step back and think about the privilege that a lot of people have, and think about the privilege that a lot of people do not have in terms of accessing online education. So for example, if you have even a family that has internet connectivity and a computer, and they have 4 small children, so then again, online education and the ability of that becomes difficult. So I do not see how it's not relevant to talk about access in the first place in order for us to talk about.
Did we lose connectivity with Usama? I think so.
I think so, yes.
Yes. Okay, moving on. I don't know if Osama's going to be back soon, but we'll just move on. Our second speaker from the opposition, Mr. Fred O Rourke. Mr. O'Rourke, you have 6 minutes for your speech.
Okay, let me start then. I'd like to start by thanking all the participants and moderator of the debate, as well as everyone involved in making this event possible. It really is an honor to be part of the School of Tomorrow event. Play is the highest form of research by a little-known scientist, Albert Einstein. Learning through play is widely recognized as a valid and powerful method of learning from early years onwards. Remote learning through computers lends itself to play as well as instruction in an incredibly powerful and effective way. Remote learning is nothing new. For the last half century or more, TV and radio programs for young children have been broadcast over the airways all around the world, with research backing up their effectiveness. My points are not going to discuss these 19th century technologies or 20th century technologies, but to delve into the paradigm of modern computers for remote learning and the potential it embodies. My experience building interactive games on a wide variety of ideas and platforms for over 20 years has shown me that the power of computers in delivering a broad canvas of possibilities. Let me explain 3 pillars they sit on and how they can effectively be used for teaching young children, and then talk about the near future. The first pillar is interactivity. Computers excel at reading input and generating output using 2D, 3D graphics, sound and movement. For example, even haptic feedback on your phone. High-end pilots learn to fly aircrafts or race Formula One cars in simulators with almost no distinguishable difference from reality. Scaling these technologies down for younger children is far easier than scaling up. Input devices like Microsoft Kinect can be incredibly powerful for children to interact with dynamic environments using their body as an input device, especially when they're too young to use a keyboard or a mouse. Touchscreens as well are incredibly effective for young children to manipulate the medium they're working with. Modern computers can react in milliseconds to complex inputs, hand motions, speech recognition with greater and greater accuracy. Even on low-end devices, the processing power and input sensors still allow a huge amount of possibilities to be delivered. The second pillar is adaptability. Computers excel at adapting to baseline abilities, depending on the inputs or previous knowledge of the user, allowing elements to be removed, added, modified to increase or decrease the challenge that the child is facing. Pacing of activities can be tailored to the child's natural ability, as well as modifying it in real time. So, for example, at the end of the lesson, when the child might be more tired, the work can be slowed down to their pace. And this helps to keep the child attentive and rewarded with their progress, instead of being frustrated, as it might be in a classroom situation where they cannot dictate the pace. And the third pillar is personalization and memory. User information and interactions can be stored and used to personalize systems to the child's learning abilities. These data points can be extremely fine. For example, noting to the microsecond how long it took a child to find and press a key on the keyboard, to rough metrics like scoring for a task. This allows systems to deliver a unique experience that continually pushes the child further without being over difficult and frustrating. This leads to predictive, continuous, and summative assessments. The ability for a computer to capture many data points to shed light on how the child learns, as well as how well they have learned, will give teachers factual information to help tailor a child's learning. Furthermore, this data can be aggregated across the class, the school, the country, or potentially the world to further improve the pedagogical effectiveness of the programs. I'd like to summarize the three pillars before talking about the near future. A computer's ability to respond to inputs, generate outputs, collect and analyze data, coupled with many different input devices, allow the possibilities for educational software for young children that goes far beyond traditional teaching tools. Now, I'd like to talk briefly about the near future. With the advent of practical specialized AI, the concept of a virtual teaching assistant will not only enable personalized and individual learning, but enable the teacher to work intensively with individual students instead of the class collective. Gamification, which is a systemic implantation of successful gaming concepts into the educational sphere, which covers areas like points, badges, leaderboards, graphs, avatars, teammates, and stories, has proved to yield positive results for social interaction, competency, and progression. Augmented reality and virtual reality will provide much deeper immersion in subjects. AI supplemented learner profiles will help reduce the burden of teachers for assessment and differentiation, giving them more time for bonding and personalized support. To sum up, I would like to suggest that not only is remote learning effective for young children, but that the technology used will also be implanted in the classroom of tomorrow to help deliver more personalized learning and better understanding of child's learning progress.
Thank you very much, Fred. I would now like to request the first member of the proposition, Ms. Nadine Murtaza, for the point of interest and for the opposition to respond.
Thank you for all of the wonderful speeches, and lastly for the points raised by Fred in his very illuminating discussion. My question, however, is that even though anyone who's worked with a young child that is facing frustration as they learn a concept from school, anyone who's faced a child like that would want to remove all barriers to learning and give them the kind of utopian computer software that Fred is talking about that can sort of make everything perfectly simple. Another wonderful quality that we do try and build at schools is resilience. And resilience comes from failing and from making mistakes. And a lot of modern education around the world is based on this idea that making mistakes is not only good for children, it's absolutely critical for learning. And so a software that smooths everything out and makes everything so simplistic and so perfect and so adapted and custom made to the child is not really an adequate preparation for the real world, where everything is not custom tailored to you, is not adapted to your personal style, and is often just difficult. So how is online learning preparing children for life?
Thank you, Ms. Nadine. We'll move on now to Mrs. Aisha Kasuri. representing the opposition, to present the opposition summary. Are we ready for the summary, Aisha?
I sure am. I'd like to, thank you. I'll try to be fast. Let me start off with saying that I agree with everything, and I think that the solution is not not one-dimensional. There are several dimensions to it. In terms of what Nadine was just talking about, the failing, I'm a big proponent that children do need to learn how to fail in order to move on, but that's also called risk-taking. And the best part about online learning and teaching is that we have AI available that lets children fail in a manner that is not embarrassing, and it's not in a classroom where they feel like if they won't come first or second or third or fourth, but it does allow them. Just for instance, every game you have 3 lives. You fail once, guess what? You have another life. You have another life. So it doesn't really matter whether you have failed. It makes failing actually inclusive. But more importantly, I would like to talk about the fact that, and I would like to close with by connecting this discussion to just a mere mention of one of the biggest existential threats that we have today, which is to mankind, which is climate change. And this, in my view, supersedes everything else philosophically. We have to look at what we can do to sustain our planet. And there are many studies, and I'm not going to bore you with those, that are out there right now that tell you that by doing a blended version of which we're moving towards a hybrid version of schooling, by staying at home and learning at home, we are reducing carbon emissions. We are reducing our carbon footprint on the planet. So that is a very important thing that we need to think about. Also, we need to look at models that are all over the world. There's not just one model. There are countries that have the same disparity that we do. This is the time that we all have to band together and get our government to get that political will to come down and say that education is important. This is the time that us citizens of the world have to look at our country's budgets and see how much is going to military and how much is going to education. So therefore, the access part, therefore I say, is something that is incumbent upon the government, not upon the citizens. That for us, we are in education to create, I will reiterate my point, we are in education to create content. We have technology already out there. There is no reason to reinvent the wheel. We have, I'll give you a small example of this deck that children use to learn languages, right? So when if you can continuously use this, you continuously make the same mistake, the deck will make sure that that word keeps coming back in. What is that? That is a virtual assistant. It can never take the place of a teacher. Don't get me wrong. It can't take the place of the teacher, but it can certainly help the teacher in ways that we haven't even thought about right now, which means inadvertently is that the teacher now is free to examine way more crucial things that you couldn't do before. And as Nadine was pointing out, how are young children going to learn what it is in real life? Well, that's through creating content online that is project-based, with real-world problems, with real-world solutions. That's what we have to give to the children. They can step away from the computer and start figuring out real-life solutions. So it doesn't all have to be behind a screen. It all doesn't have to be about connectivity or having access to the internet. And by the way, there are apps that are 2G apps. So they do not require bandwidth. They work in low-tech environments. We need to be looking at those things. Again, I don't want the discussion to be primarily about Pakistan, because we are talking about a global pandemic, and we are talking about whether online teaching is ineffective for children. And I rest my case at this, where I say that I think it is a very effective way to teach children. And most importantly, it is a very effective way to create student agency. They learn in their own time, they learn at their own pace, and guess what? They help us save the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you very much. Moving on to the proposition summary. I now request Ms. Nadine Murtaza, representing the proposition, to present the proposition summary. You have 4 minutes for this, Nadine.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to have been part of this conversation. I think discussions like this push all of us, regardless of what we believe and what we do in our practice, to look at these issues from all sides. I'm really grateful to Beacon House for hosting this. And I want to begin my rebuttal with a sort of a shout out to all of the teachers, especially early years teachers who have turned themselves inside and outside in order to provide meaningful online teaching to the best of their abilities throughout the COVID pandemic. And I think they have the hardest job because middle school and high school teachers simply don't have that kind of a challenge. And I have to say, to conclude, that on our side of the house, we feel that, anybody who has read research on what video games are doing to children and how they have a tendency, because of being gamified and being games, to become addictive, can understand if those video games were suddenly providing us data-driven learning outcomes, would they become more acceptable to us? And would we be more comfortable bearing the impact of that technology on our children, where they are unable to blink, they're addicted because the program is designed to make them have those dopamine hits every time they get something right? Is it good for them to be suffering from childhood obesity, from leading a largely sedentary life? A lot of the research about video games pertains to tweens and teenagers, older children. We're talking about a really young segment of children. Online learning can affect them very badly. And I think going over some of the points that we made in terms of social impact and in terms of helicopter parenting, sometimes school is a place where you can escape a toxic or a difficult or an abusive home environment. That's not the case for everybody, but it's the case for many people, is that school is often a place where you go to be seen by other people from your community who are trained to observe you for all kinds of learning and all kinds of developmental milestones. And to replace that with online learning, I think would be to our detriment. And I think as wonderful as online learning is, and as wonderful as it is to have students meeting standardized assessment learning outcomes on tests, I think that we have to understand that that is the low-hanging fruit. And our goal is not to educate the mind of our child in reading, writing, and arithmetic. Our goal is to have children who will be stewards of the planet, who have some experience getting mud on their hands, who have played outside, who have an arts curriculum, who are not just passive learners. And to sum it up, if you look at any preschool classroom, the way we set it up is for children to be able to betray their learning and leave evidences that they're learning and thinking. And so I think in the spirit of play, the proposition strongly recommends blended learning, but not online learning, as the most effective option.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you very much. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to move on to the post-debate poll. I'd like to invite our viewers to log into live.sotevents.com to cast your final vote, please, either for or against the motion. I will repeat the motion for you. Online teaching is ineffective for younger children. We'll just have a look and see. Just going to share my screen so that you can see the results as well. Debaters, can you see my screen?
We can't see your screen.
You cannot see my screen. Okay.
Ah, it's coming up. Okay, you guys win.
Okay, so the psychology of learning, online teaching is ineffective for younger children. Disagree with code poll. We have 66.67% of the population disagree with the motion. Okay, so they disagree with the motion. And before the poll took place, the first poll we had 61.64% agreed that it was ineffective, and now we have 66.67 who disagree with the motion. So it's actually the
1%
that takes the motion here, that succeeds, I suppose. Thank you very much, debaters, for your time. This concludes the debate. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you, and of course, thank all our viewers for tuning in. Your feedback is extremely important to us, and I'd like to request the viewers, it'll just take a click of a button, go back to our website, live.sotevents.com, and give us your feedback for the session. There are so many more discussions planned for tomorrow and Sunday. Please remember to join us. All the best. Stay safe. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, debaters, once again for your time. All the best. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.